everybody. Best coming at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the new attempt to establish censorship on social media by who I believe is Ken Griffin is behind it. Now, I'm going to take you down the rabbit trail. Follow with me. But when I get to the end, I think you're going to be really, really shocked. And I hope it helps you make informed decisions in 2024. Okay? Now, before I begin, let me back up just a little bit and give you some groundwork on why I believe what I believe. In 2022, the Democratic Party tried to establish what was known as the Disinformation Governance Board. Okay? Now, I said Democrat, but let me say also, I'm not Democrat nor Republican, but you're about to find that out. I'm an American, and I just try to do what's right. All right? But in 2022, they tried to establish a Disinformation Governance Board. What that board was meant to do was they would crack down on anything that they said wasn't true. So that meant that you couldn't talk about Joe Biden's perhaps mental lapses. You couldn't talk about his frailness and how he wouldn't be able to run for 2024 and last 4 more years and so forth and so on. These type of things here, people flip their wig over when they tried to come out with this truth board that they were going to be telling us what we believe, basically. This is what you're allowed to believe, and if you don't believe that, well, then we're going to censor you. All right? And people freaked out. They hollered about it. It was just like when Putin did it over here in Russia. All right? Where in 2014, Putin signs law forcing bloggers to register with Russia Media Office. Okay? Now let's scroll on down and take a look at what it says. President Vladimir Putin has signed a law tightening the Russian government's already stronghold on the internet. Earlier this week, Putin officially passed what became known as the Bloggers Law, which requires popular internet writers to follow rules normally reserved for larger media outlets. Under it, any blogger with more than 3,000 readers is required to register with the Roskomnadzor, however you pronounce that, Russian Media Oversight Agency. So the Russian Media Oversight Agency was called
Roskomnadzor.
Fuck trying to pronounce it. According to the Reporters Without Borders, the law covers not only traditional bloggers, but microblogs and social networks. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, so forth. He was putting a stop to anybody who spoke out against him or his government. All right? Now, like I said, we got that over here in 2022 with the Democrats, but it failed. But did they stop simply because the attempt failed? No, the attempt is back. All right? They're going to be setting up another Disinformation Governance Board to where you're not going to be able to talk about a particular politician or his staff or legislators of his state. And the person who's behind that push is Ron DeSantis. Florida bill would require bloggers who write about the governor and legislators to register with the state. The bill proposed by Republican State Senator Jason Boder would also require bloggers who write about state officials to disclose who is paying them and how much. And as you read the article and go on, it's pretty much exactly the same as what the Democrats were trying to do. Now, if everybody had a fit over the Democrats trying to do it, what in the world would DeSantis be in his mind that he's going to try to set up a truth board that you're not going to be able to talk about him or his legislators or anybody in his cabinet? Now, that ought to freak you out enough that if you think there's a difference between Democrat and Republican, you are nuts. All right? There is a driving force behind both parties. And I tell my dad, it's like this. You could turn on CNN. If you are Democrat, that's what you watch. If you are Republican, you go to Fox because you're a conservative. Everybody has their own little place they like to go for, like on YouTube. I told y'all that the other day. That you gravitate to the news on YouTube for the person and personality that you enjoy. But they are trying to put a stop to it. You will not be allowed to talk about DeSantis or his cabinet any longer. And if it doesn't agree with what they say, you're in trouble, Jack. You're in trouble. Now, I said in the thumbnail, Ken Griffin's behind this. And I say that because Ken Griffin just happens to be Ron DeSantis' biggest mega donor. All right, where he donated nearly $60 million to the federal Republican candidates and campaigns this election cycle. $20 million of that campaign money went to Ron DeSantis. Now, I told y'all in an earlier video when I found this out, I said, listen, the SEC chair is appointed by the president. And here we see Ken Griffin moving his headquarters from Chicago to Florida. Why? Because of crime. And my employees can't even go to work without being carjacked and robbed and blue. But when he moved his headquarters to Florida, how many of them employees went with him? It had nothing to do about employees. It's political. He was getting in DeSantis' pocket, or you could say DeSantis was getting into his pocket, however way you want to look at it. But the fact is, these two men are working together. And now Ken Griffin knows, everybody knows who he is, and he's doing his best to get into a position such as the SEC chair or the Secretary of Treasurer, some people believe, and he's even admitted that he's got his eyes on that position. And people, if that man ever gets to that position, they will destroy this country. You know it, and I know it. And whose pocket is he in? Ron DeSantis. So, in 2024, when we get ready to do our voting and get to holler about who our favorite candidates are, if you yell Ron DeSantis, you just better well holler Ken Griffin as well. Now, once this is established, if Ron DeSantis was to win the presidency and he appoints Ken Griffin in office, we will not be able to do a video about Ken Griffin anymore. We won't be able to expose the corruption because he'll say it's not true, and the Truth Board will agree with him. Why? Because it's DeSantis. And DeSantis is in his pocket. So you better keep that in mind when it comes to who you're going to vote for in the next election. And I'm going to give you a tip of what's coming. All right? A civil war or a world war we are fixing to have. And we're going to need the right people in office, not this group, that's going to be able to deal with this situation that we'll be finding ourselves in very soon. We're going to need a president who can deal with that. And I believe, I told my dad, when I went over there to drink coffee the other morning, and he said, you ain't going to believe who's running for president. And I said, DeSantis. And he said, no. And I said, who? He said, Nikki Haley. I said, Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley used to be the UN security ambassador. And he said, yeah. And I said, that's bad news, Pop. That's bad. If they are pushing for Nikki Haley to be president of the United States, it's because they believe that they're going to need a firm negotiator with the UN. And she has history. So that's why they're putting her up. And then on the other side of the fence, people are putting up DeSantis. Why? So they can cover up their fucking corruption. So it'll be up to you. I'm not going to tell y'all who to vote for, just like I didn't tell y'all what y'all should vote for in this AMC election. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for in the presidential election. But you got the orange-haired man, you got Nikki Haley, and you got this corrupt piece of mafia-looking bullshit over in Florida. Let me tell y'all something. I tell y'all all the time, you ought to be able to figure this shit out by now. How do you get people manipulated? You make them agree with you. Or you make them think that you agree with them. What do you think his push is against Disney? Disney's been there this whole time. He's never opened his fucking mouth. Just all of a sudden, right before an election, he's going to take a stand against wokeness. Don't work. Don't work. Manipulation. Shut down Disney. And everybody hollered, yeah, DeSantis for president. Shit like that. Manipulation. Don't fall for it. This is going to be important, people. And with that, give you a lot of time to get some thought about this into your head. In my next video I'm going to be doing, I'm going to tell y'all how my option plays played out this week and how happy I am and how I'm looking forward to next week because I'm going to bang their ass up. I took some of my money back from them this week and I'm excited for next week. And I'll tell you about that in the next video. Love y'all. Be blessed. People, open your eyes before it becomes too late. See you in the next video.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so free.